Hi, I'm Baldur Brönnimann, and this is the Conducting Coaching Podcast, where we talk about conducting from the inside. In this episode, we'll talk about something that I personally feel very strongly about, and that is maybe the single most important aspect of the work of a conductor, apart from the musical work when you're standing on the box, which is programming. As conductors, we often focus on how to play something. We work on our interpretation or about making our group sound better. But it's often the programming that is the most visible aspect of our work and the one that creates the biggest impact. And it doesn't matter on which musical level you work. Programming is often the key for what you can achieve as a conductor. If you conduct a student or kids orchestra, for example, you want to work on certain technical aspects, but you also want to inspire your musicians to discover music they never heard of. You want to make them curious and to get them hooked and motivated to look further. So you'll have to find the right repertoire that can do this for you. Finding the best piece or program for specific circumstances is a key quality for a conductor. How often will you have heard a professional musician say, "When I played or heard that and that piece for the first time, that's when I knew I wanted to be a musician." So programming is a big responsibility. It's the same for amateur orchestras or even for professionals. Your artistic persona as a conductor is articulated in good part through the music you program, the music you feel passionate about, and the music you want to share and stand up for. You can either open the ears to new listening experiences or close them, because with the programming comes the musical horizon your musicians are exposed to. Then there is also the perspective of the public. The communities you play for will mainly hear what you program for them. For them too, you need to be imaginative and make them curious about all the vast variety of music that is out there. No excuses to play always the same pieces over and over again. Programming needs the same insight, preparation and artistic intention as conducting itself. And lastly, there is also you, your personal artistic insight and who you are as an artist. If you're a young conductor, for example, who just got invited to guest conduct, you will want to do something that shows you from the best possible side, something you feel strongly about and that you feel is really you. It starts with your passion and with your curiosity and the desire to do something meaningful for your listeners. Programming is really a matter of life and death. And unfortunately, I think in the classical music scene and in conductors' education, this aspect is not always given the importance it really has. I still sometimes hear conversations like, "Yes, let's play this and this piece because we haven't played it for 2 years." Or our world really stops at Prokofiev. We don't do anything after that. And I think it's just really poor. And it's also not very professional. Looking at art galleries and museums, for example, they have the challenge of presenting always the same collections in always new and different ways to connect with the same public again. There are a lot of similarities with classical music here, but the art world put a lot more research into curating collections and expositions and how to build bridges to their public. Museology is full of work on presenting works of art in a meaningful and relevant way. We don't have the figure of a curator in classical music, but that's where conductors come in. We have to do the thinking, the research, and to create the ideas that provide these experiences for our musicians as well as for the audiences. We also have to look at the subject of your artistic profile. In my conversation with Leila in episode 2, we touched upon the importance of creating a narrative for young conductors. And I find every time I want to book somebody young, people want to do the same things. Beethoven 7, Brahms 2, Brahms 4, Dvorak 9, and so on. And when I say I need something more personal or individual in order to create that narrative for a conductor nobody knows, it's sometimes impossible to have a deeper conversation about repertoire. Because people just don't know, or sometimes they're scared to look at new things. But people don't just book two hands. We want your thoughts, your ideas, your insights that will take an orchestra and the public serious and give them a real experience. This all starts with you standing up for something and having the passion and desire to make a program work when you're on the podium. Apart from everything else, it's also a big joy and a constant source of inspiration to find interesting works or combinations of works to provide new experiences or to let people see music in a new light and to be in a position where you can influence the music, the way music is heard and seen. But you have to make sure that we dig the hole deep enough and we are really as adventurous, thoughtful and inspirational as we need to be, and not just go with what has done before and has been proven before. In this episode, I want to talk about the basics of programming. There's so many aspects to programming, but some of them we'll have to look at in later episodes. Today, we'll lay the groundwork. We've already spoken about the angle of the public, the musicians, and of your own. But I think in any type of programming situation, there are a few questions that you have to ask yourselves from the very start. First one is, what do you have to achieve with the program? Are there long-term or short-term goals? Do you want to reach new audiences? Do you want to open the ears of your existing public? Engage them? Do you want to position your orchestra in a certain way? Do you want to develop certain aspects with your group, and so on? Second question is, who do you program for? Like, how good is your orchestra? How flexible are they? Are you in a position to make a certain idea really work? Who's your public? Are they flexible too? Third question is, what are the circumstances of a program? Where do you play something? How many rehearsals do you have? What size is your group? What do people expect to hear in that particular event? Let me just make a small example. You might know Mahler 9 from memory and have really amazing things to say about it, but if you have one rehearsal in the sound check and your concert is in a shopping mall for people who pass by, nobody will know or appreciate this. Neither the piece nor your qualities as a conductor. But on the other hand, if you know good pieces that can be done on one rehearsal and will work well enough in a shopping mall, for example, for people to get curious about your orchestra, that's a big bonus. And if on top you can mix in something that is unexpected and that the orchestra really enjoys playing, that is not complicated logistically and works in a difficult acoustic, then you have the best chances of getting booked again. So here, people who can come up quickly with something good and with an inspiring idea for certain settings are in a big advantage. Like in all types of settings. But in order to have good ideas, first of all, you have to know the repertoire. And by that I mean everything. Everything, everything, everything. This is a lifelong journey, but it starts with your curiosity and your eagerness to discover. The unity and uniqueness of programs is often down to you finding inner threads between pieces or having central thoughts. This is a question of a lot of research and intellectual work, which we will get to in a later episode. But there are also many practical aspects. Again, in programming discussions, knowing the exact technical implications of a piece are key. And by exact, I mean not just the orchestration of a piece or how long it is, but details like if the piano player can also play celeste or if you need a different musician, how big a string section needs to be, or how much rehearsal time you need for a certain piece. In an educational context, you will need to know, for example, if every musician can learn something from a work, also your percussionists, and on the other hand, if it's not too difficult for any of them. You will have to know what editorial questions come into play, like what edition of a Bruckner symphony you want to do and the reasons for it. When you get invited to do a program and it's your first time, it might also not be great to choose a work that has notoriously bad editions, and you have to spend half of your rehearsal time correcting mistakes, printing mistakes and so on, and never getting through to the music. All this is technical knowledge, and it will do you a lot of favors. The more you know about the practical implications of a piece, the better. Now, let me also say something personal here. I'm often surprised how conservative young conductors are when it comes to programming. I understand that it's often the music business that wants you to play safe, but safe doesn't mean boring. Remember why you got into conducting in the first place. You were fascinated by musical discovery, by works and sounds that changed your world. And you felt this passion for bringing this music to people. Now, don't ever forget this when you get older, because this discovery never stops. As a conductor, you need your inner conviction. Don't just be a music operator. You have something to say, and the world needs you to say it, and bring people along with your passion and your skill. I personally have a few guidelines that I try to follow in most of my programs if possible. For example, never compromise on the contents, but compromise on the form. Make sure that the program is always thought-provoking. I try to always program a big variety of musical styles and to create a narrative within a program and build bridges to the audience. I try to include the music of our own time in every program I do. I also try to be popular but never populist, and to really program the music I believe in. Now, this is my programming philosophy. It has changed over the years, and I'm sure it will change again. Yours will be different, and that's totally fine. But there is absolutely no excuse not to give programming all the thought it deserves. We'll hear about this later on again on the Conducting Coaching podcast. Thanks for listening. To send us your comments or suggestions, please write us a message on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date with all the conducting coaching news and events.